Hi everybody, welcome back. Glad you could tune in again. Let's continue, shall we, looking at this seventh pledge that we've made as members of the Congregation of All Saints to commit ourselves to the establishment and maintenance of a covenant Christian household in the way of our Christian faith. And as you'll recall, we've been approaching this by thinking about Paul's teaching in Ephesians 6:4. I'll read it to you and then we'll just pick up where we left off in this short text. Fathers, we've thought about that. Do not exasperate your children, or do not provoke your children to anger. We've thought about that. The next thing Paul says, bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Let's just think about that little phrase for a moment. Bring them up. What might that indicate? Well, at one level, it's so obvious it hardly needs saying, but it has some significant implications. What it means, of course, is that the process of turning a baby into a mature Christian adult is a process that takes quite a long time. Hence, bring them up. It's an image of growth, of gradual progression, isn't it? It's not just do something. It's, in an ongoing way, engage with them, bring them up gradually. Many of us who are parents, when we were younger parents and had very small children, may have looked at families with teenagers and thought, goodness, how would I cope with all the pressures and demands and questions and worries that beset the heart and the mind of a 12-year-old boy or a 15-year-old girl. And mercifully, the Lord does not just give us, under normal circumstances, a 12-year-old boy or a 15-year-old girl. He gives us a one-day-old. And we get to grow gradually as our children grow gradually. And the task really is a gradual, progressive one. It's day by day, just to keep doing the right thing today. So that's a wonderful mercy of God. He knows our weakness and our frailty. He knows that with the best will in the world, there are very few parents who could cope with going from just being a couple to just having 5 teenage kids. That would be too much to ask. But in his wisdom, he gradually gives us children. And therefore, we're to respond to that by gradually nurturing them, one day at a time, one day at a time. So maybe that's a helpful image to have in mind as we're thinking about raising our kids. It's just today. It's just today. And then tomorrow it will just be tomorrow. And then the next day. And then the next day. And if we do that, it might make the task of raising our kids, and particularly if you're teaching your children at home, as I know many of you are teaching your kids, it might make that a bit less onerous. If you're looking at your 12-year-old and trying to think, how on earth is he going to get to pre-college level mathematics in 6 years? Well, the answer is he's going to get there in 6 years, one day at a time, one step at a time. Think of the whole of the Christian life like that. It's a mercy that God gives us the time that we need to bring up our children wisely by his grace. Of course, it does mean we need to use the time well. And one of the problems with a gradual process of any kind is that we could just take our eye off the ball, couldn't we? We could take our eye off the ball and not realise that we let that day, that week, that month drift by with no meaningful discipline and instruction, no meaningful nurture and admonition. And so let's not let the gradual character of Christian growth in a child delude us into thinking, oh, there'll always be time for that in the future. No, today has its tasks, but today has today's tasks. Let's leave tomorrow's tasks for tomorrow. There's a happy balance there, isn't there? Let's think about what we need to do today. Let's do the best job we can at it. Just one final thought, and again, this is an attempt to put into practical terms the kind of thing Paul is speaking about here. I've found myself that it's quite easy to forget that our children are growing up. A young lady or a young man can go from 12 to 14 and 15 to 17, and because it happens so slowly over a period of day by day, by day by day, we hardly notice the difference. But actually they've changed a lot between 12 and 14. They've changed a lot between 15 and 17. So I do encourage you occasionally just to step back for a second and think, how do I want to be treating a 10-year-old? How do I want to be treating a 15-year-old? How do I want to be treating an 18-year-old? And let's make sure that we are making the adjustments that are appropriate in the way that we treat our children, the kind of freedoms we give them, the way we relate to them, discipline them, disciple them, and so on, and the expectations that we place upon them, so that we're not still treating our 17-year-olds like 7-year-olds. We want to make sure that we are making the best possible use of this gradual day-by-day process, bring them up, without becoming complacent or forgetting the passage of time as the years roll on. Well, I hope that's helpful. I hope it sets you free a little bit from some of the anxieties and fears of, goodness, how would I cope with an 18-year-old, while at the same time giving you a sense of seize the day today, and let's do the best we possibly can to raise our children today, given the resources that we have received from the Lord. The Lord bless you, and bye for now.